Welcome back, everybody. Let's take a look at this Excel spreadsheet again. And I've done a little labeling, as you can see over here on the right-hand side in this image. And we looked at this a little bit on the board in a previous video on the whiteboard. So this top dot here, not including this big blotch, this top dot is my 0th dot, and then there's x1, x2. And then I jump down here a ways and I talk about x sub k minus 1. This is x sub k. And x sub k plus 1. And those are generic notations for just dots somewhere on the line. And here was the equation that we looked at for velocity. So what we want to do is we want to look at the velocity at each of these dots and see what we can discover as far as plugging in the formula and making some calculations. All right, so we're going to look at cell references as we do this, and that'll be a big deal. So let's come up here to cell C2 and make this a velocity. So I type in velocity, again, alternate shift, and then I'll designate V for the symbol for velocity, and then we'll do centimeters per second. We could do meters per second, but we'll just stick with centimeters per second. And then let's just choose an arbitrary spot, and I'll check this 7.1 centimeters here, which is x sub 6, if I look at this as my k notation, if you will. All right, so let's figure out the velocity then. So I hit the equal sign. All formula in Excel start off with an equal sign. And then I'm going to choose the position afterward, right? So x sub k plus 1, so that's the position here in cell B10. And then I'm going to subtract, and I put spaces in between my operators and my cell references just for readability. But then I'm going to subtract x sub k minus 1. So that would be cell B8. So B10 minus B8. Notice in the equation here, the B10 is in blue. Cell B10 is highlighted in blue. The B8 is in red. Cell B8 is highlighted in red. So there's my change in position. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter there. And so I get 4, and that makes sense. It's 9.2 minus 5.2. So that would be 4. But I still need to divide by the time interval. So let's go back into here, and I'm going to just double click, and when I double click the cell, it's opened up for editing again. I'm going to put a parentheses on the left side of B10 and another parentheses on the right side of B10, because that operation of subtraction needs to be done before the operation of division. And remember that division takes priority over subtraction, but parentheses take a priority over everything else. So I pop those in parentheses, and then I'm going to divide by the time interval, and the time interval is 2/60ths of a second, so 2/60ths of a second. And I'm going to put that in parentheses just to make sure nothing messes up there. Okay, and we're actually going to change that here in a little bit, but we'll go ahead with the 2/60ths of a second. So I've got, remember it was 9.2, so I've got 9.2 minus 5.2, that was 4. Divide that by 2/60ths, which is dividing by 1/30th. And 4 divided by 1/30th is 120, right? You flip and multiply. So dividing by 1/30th is the same as multiplying by 30. So I can copy this up and down. So let's do that. So I'm going to go to the home menu, and I'm going to click over here under copy. I could also do Control C. You'll see that. I'll do a copy here, and then I go to the cell below it, and I'm going to paste. And you'll notice paste is Control V. All right, so let's see what happens there. B10 minus B8 becomes B11 minus B9. B11 minus B9, and it's still divided by 2/60ths of a second. All right, so that's 10.6 minus 7.1. Notice that's a little less. So that's, what do we got there? 3.5. This was 4, so that interval change is kind of interesting. So 3.5 over 2/60ths. Velocity should be going up, but in this case it drops down a little bit. Hopefully I don't have a typo someplace. That actually makes me wonder about my values, but we'll leave it alone for now. All right, then let's do another copy on this cell. I'm going to hit escape real quick. And when I hit escape, you'll see that the little dash lines going around 1/20th when I hit copy are gone. I'm going to go back up here. This time I'm going to do Control C. So I hit the Control button, keep it held down, then hit the C button. And you can see those dashed lines going around that cell reappear. And then let's do Control V, hit the Control button and hold it, hit the V button, and it pastes it in. B10 minus B8 becomes B9 minus B7. Right? Now if I were to move over to this cell over here and do Control V and paste, you got a minus 90 in there. Where's that coming from? Well, if I double click the cell, notice what happens is I've got C10 minus C8, where this was B10 minus B8. So when I copy to the right, the letter designation, which is the column designation, changes. But when I copy up or down, the numerical or row designation changes. And you can see that here. So I go B9 minus B7, 10 minus 8, 11 minus 9. But here B, copy over, becomes C. The 10 and 8 do not change. Let's keep in mind that the spark generator can be adjusted. I had it set at 1/60th of a second, but it could be 2/60ths or, well, not 2/60. It could be 1/30th or 1/10. There were some other possibilities in there. So let's go ahead and change this time interval. Instead of going with 2/60ths, let's be more generic. So I'm going to come up here to cell E2. Let me escape from there. Cell E2. And I'm going to put time interval and Alt Shift. And then the symbol is going to be delta T. So I'm going to use a capital D T. And I'll explain the capital D in just a second. And then that will still be in seconds. And there you go. And notice the interval, the word time disappeared. So I can make this a little wider. And there it becomes time interval. And I really want to center that. And then the capital D, I used a delta, so let's go into this. And I'm going to highlight the capital D. And then up here where the fonts are, I'm going to switch to a font called Symbol. So we scroll down to Symbol, and the symbol font is Greek letters. So I click on that, and you can see that the capital D became the Greek letter delta, the capital delta actually. So I'm good to go there. And then I want a numerical value in here, and I want 1/30th. So I'm going to hit equal sign 1/30th. Same as 2/60th. I could type it in as 2/60th. It wouldn't change at all. You'll notice up in this area it still says 2/60th, but it displays in decimal places. So what I want to do is I want to make that change. Let's go back to this equation. I'm going to double click. And instead of 2/60ths over here, I'm going to click on this cell reference. Okay, and I'll hit enter. That doesn't change anything here. But when I go down to here, it still says 2/60th here. I want that cell reference to change. So let's do a copy. And then I'll go down one cell and we'll do a paste. And it says division by 0. Why is that? So if I take a look at this, you'll see that I have E4. But I don't want cell E4. I want cell E3. So what's going on here? Well, it has to do with those relative cell references. Up here it was E3. Down here it's E4. But I don't want it to change. When I copy down or up, I want it to remain E3. So what I do is I come into here, I'm editing, and I'm going to put a $sign in front of the 3. Okay, that doesn't change this at all. It's still E3. But when I copy down, so Control C, Control V, when I copy, that now works out just fine. So that's called a fixed cell reference when I put the $sign in. Okay, so when I copy down, notice the B, 10 and 8 become B, 11 and 9, but the E3 remains E3. Now when I copy to the right, so I'm going to hit paste. So I'm going to hit paste in here. I get division by 0 again. Well, what's going on? I got that fixed reference, but if I double click in here, you'll notice E3 became F3. So if I don't want it to change left or right as well as up and down, I put the $sign in front of the E as well. And now when I hit Control C to copy and Control V to paste, I get the same result. The E3 remains E3. Notice the B at the numerator became C, but the E does not change because of that fixed reference. Okay, one more quick look. Let's just make sure we kind of see what's going on. This is B10 and B8. I'm going to go down 10 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And when I hit paste now, notice B20 and B18. So the number of cells I went down was 10. The B10 becomes B20, and the B8 became B18. We'll stop there. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below.